Hello guys, my name is Chantel. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for hanging out with me today. So today we are talking about Idolish7 third beat episode 17, and like I said in my last video, I'm sorry this is late. I'm trying to catch up with doing this discussion video, so I hope you guys enjoy and I hope it was worth the wait. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into talking about this episode. So in last week's episode, we basically start off where we left off in the previous episode with Yatome basically giving the Trigger Boys the contact of termination, which he then tells them like, okay, this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna announce this on the website next month, but there's not gonna be any press. And this obviously upsets the boys, especially 10. 10 seems the most, well, not that, I don't want to say the most frustrated out of everybody, but I feel like 10 showed a lot of emotion, which is honestly kind of very rare because he usually is able to keep his composure a lot of the time. So this was really nice to see 10 just ask like, okay, tell me why you're doing this, otherwise I can't accept this, in which Yatome responds that they are a burden to the company now, and if he doesn't let go of them, they're all gonna go down with him, and he needs to do the right thing, let him go, and try to rebuild his image and the company in order to save everyone else. To which, like I said earlier, 10 is extremely upset, mostly for the sake of his fans, because he feels like this is wrong, because the Trigger fans deserve more than just this. They deserve a concert or something so they could let them know, hey, we're going away for a bit. Into which Yatome responds, this is only if they decide that this is how Trigger is going to end. And he basically says that, the boys have permission to continue as Trigger and continue to singing their songs. It's just depending on how they decide to take the next step is up to them. If they want to decide to end things now, then that's their choice. But if they want to continue as Trigger and keep on fighting, then that's also their choice. He also lets them know that it's not going to be easy to be able to come from the bottom of the barrel all the way to the top, so they're gonna have to work really, really hard, and it's probably going to be their last live performance in a while, and it's probably gonna be a while until they get jobs, so it's gonna be a really, really hard time for Trigger. But it looks like Yatome has full faith that they'll be able to come out of this and just come out of it stronger than ever. And of course, the boys decide to go out on a drive and, think about this and decide what they wanted to do, which I really, really, really like the scene with Trigger. And we basically dive into why the boys wanted to go into this industry in the first place. Gaku's reason was basically, because of his father, he did this because he didn't want his father to basically say, oh, you can't do this. So Gaku would always be like, no, watch me. I can do this, and I can do it better than what you could have ever imagined. But along the way, he had grown to love this industry, the fans, and everything around it, that he enjoyed his job, and this ended up becoming his dream. And I really like that, because I feel like a lot of times with people's jobs, like, we sometimes do things just because our parents told us to, or someone else told us that we might be a good fit for it, and we're unsure about it or feel about it, and in the end we find out that we end up loving our job, or we end up finding a passion for something, I feel like in that sense it's really relatable. And then we also have someone like 10 who's always had this dream since he was a kid. And 10 realized this especially when he would sing and dance for Riku, and he loved the idea of becoming something that would make people happy. And I feel like when 10 said this made me realize a lot with artists out there, especially, group idols and stuff. Like, for example, right now with BTS and what's happening right now with them, and just seeing them and how much they love and adore their fans, and just, again, everything revolving Jin and his song, like leaving that song for us as a see you later, I'll be back. Like, yeah, anyways, so I don't know, maybe it's because I have like a million emotions with BTS that it just made me think of this when Ten was talking about it. That made me emotional, and I could connect in that sense of like, I get that feeling. I get what Ten is trying to say, and that's probably what the members of BTS are feeling, especially Jin. But anyway, a little just side note there. After their drive, they basically decide that they do not want to quit just yet or are ready to say goodbye to their fans. So they decide that they're going to start over from scratch. And once they are able to make it back to the top, they're going back to Yatome and audition again. So that is their plan. And Gaku does talk about how he mentions they always had first class seats to their success. And now they get to experience a whole bunch of different things they haven't experienced when they had the help of Yatome and his company. So this is going to be a whole new experience for Trigger, and I feel like seeing this struggle, and I feel like this trial for Trigger is definitely going to make them a lot more stronger, and it's going to just unite them more as a group, just make their bonds even stronger, which is really exciting to see. Because for me, I'm actually really excited to see what's going to happen with Trigger and just how much more stronger they're going to grow as a group, because they're already strong as a group, and I love Trigger, but I feel like the more we watch these episodes go, the more I'm really, really, really going to love Trigger even more. So I'm excited to see what the future holds for our boys, even though it's going to be a little bit hard, especially with Zool being in the picture and them making it harder for them. I know our boys are going to come out of this on top and are just they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be fine. Anyways, so they end up signing the contract, and the music festa is going to be their last performance with Yatome production, and probably, like I said earlier, in a while. And the boys decide not to tell anyone just yet at the music festa in order not to bring the mood down, which is kind of nice, but I feel like at the same time I was like you know, I can understand that, but at the same time I'm like, you guys should tell them. But at the same time, I understand why you guys are doing this, because you can tell like they wanted to tell Idolish7 like, hey, this is what's going on, that way you guys won't be surprised. But they wanted Idolish7 to perform as always and not think about this, because they're already thinking about them anyways, so they just don't want to bring the mood down even more. So yeah, anyway, after that, they actually run into Zool, and it's kind of messy. But I also love how Trigger is able to stand up for themselves, because Toma is the first one to go, and he asks Gaku how does it feel to be betrayed by the popularity, and how it only got them so far because of the agency and their strategy and whatnot, which Gaku tells them not to underestimate their fans. And they would obviously notice if they weren't being genuine with their performance and everything that they're doing, and told him to look inside himself if he's having to say that. So with me, like, hearing Gaku say all this, I was like, you know, he has a point. I feel like most of us can tell when an artist is being genuine or not, and just based on their actions and words and how they act, you know, in the industry as well. Like, you can tell who's in it because they love it and who's in it just because. Success can only go so far if you're not really putting your passion 100% into it. So, you know, like I said, Gaku has a point, and us as fans can see when people are being genuine or fake. Moving on to the next Zool member that goes after Toma is Haruka, which this interaction between Haruka and Ten was a little intense, but also kind of hilarious, because towards the end with Haruka, how he reacts is kind of funny, but also made me realize something. But let's go ahead and talk about it, because Haruka basically tells Ten how everything he's done has been pointless, how the fans turned on him, and how Riku ended up betraying him too in the end, and even with his illness, which when Haruka is talking about this, you can tell Toma gets surprised hearing this about Riku's illness, which I feel like he kind of had an idea, because that's how he met Riku in the first place when he was having an attack and Toma was able to help him, but he didn't really question it, obviously. But now hearing this and everything and the whole situation, Toma is surprised. And again, it just, I feel like I said earlier, I feel like Toma and Riku are just gonna be like this, there's gonna be a bond between them, you know? And like I said, Riku is definitely gonna be the one to get through Toma. Out of everyone, it's gonna be Riku getting to Toma, and Toma's gonna be able to probably talk to Zool maybe and bring them all together. Who knows? But yeah, I feel like the key is Riku and Toma to this whole situation. But we'll see what happens and see how everything plays out and see if my theory is correct or if I'm wrong. Anyway, going back to Haruka and Ten. So Ten ends up standing up for himself and he asked Haruka why he's doing this, if he's doing this for reward or for praise or what. And Ten ends up saying how he doesn't have any regrets. He's never wished from anything from the fans or Riku or asked for anything in return. He's doing this because he wants to, and he's here because of the choices he made, and he has, again, no regrets, and that Haruka doesn't know the joy of bringing others happiness, and basically gives Haruka like a piece of his mind in the end, and to which Haruka gets really surprised, which is so funny. I feel like he expected Ten to like be down in the dumps, I guess, but it ended up flipping on him, which I thought was so funny, because then we see Haruka just crying like a little baby in the end, which is so funny. Honestly, I did not expect that, but it made me realize that Haruka is still a child and he is just throwing a tantrum because of how he was treated. Like he's a child, like he is a kid still, and he has a kid mindset with everything that's going on, and he is, like I said, he's just hurt and he's just reacting to that hurt. And the only reason why I ended up realizing this is because Minami mentions how Haruka is still a child, and that's when I had the aha moment. I was like, wait, he's right, he is still a child, and the way that he's acting is like a child. Like when he doesn't get his way and he ends up crying, it's kind of like when you take away a toy from a kid and they start crying until they give it back. But yeah. Anyway, you guys, so with this, he ends up leaving, and so does Torao. They end up leaving, and Toma ends up getting a little bit upset and frustrated because he's like, hey, like, we're a group, like, what are you guys doing? But Minami reminds him, like, hey, remember, we're just doing this for 3 years and then that's it. To which you can see Toma's reaction. He's just kind of, it looks like he's upset by this reality. And I feel like I said, even though Toma said that he isn't going to sing genuinely anymore, I feel like he, like, deep down, he wants to, and he wants to change. But I feel like I said, he needs to go in the right direction, and again, I feel like Riku will probably guide him in that direction, but who knows? We'll see what happens anyway. And speaking of Minami, the thing that actually had me like pausing this episode with my jaw dropping was when Minami mentions how they are going to have a live performance on the Lovely Night show and be able to reunite with Idolish7, and that he's looking forward to seeing Yamato, but mostly Nagi. And his demeanor changes when he talks about Nagi, and he mentions how he's angry for Nagi for forgetting and for calling Haruki his friend. And I was like, wait a minute, Minami has a connection with Haruki? And I think that's what like blew my mind in this episode. I was just so shocked because, again, I don't know the story game. I don't know what's gonna happen. I know a few details here and there, but not everything. So this is one of the surprises here where I was like, what? So I am actually really interested to see like what's the connection there. How did Minami meet Haruki, and what's up with that history? You know, like I'm actually excited to get to see that and dive into it. Who knows if it's gonna be this season or the next, but we'll see. Again, I have so many questions, so many like, yeah. I don't know how else to explain that, but I'm excited to just dive deeper into all of this, you know, like see what's gonna happen next. And exactly what does Minami mean by Nagi forgetting? Like, what did Nagi forget? Why does he have this vendetta against Nagi? Like, I am just very, very curious. Anyway, you guys, so Trigger finally prepares themselves for what's to come, and they just sing their heart out during this live. And once they finish singing, to which when I was watching them perform and seeing the lyrics on the screen to Shine on the Sea, I was blown away because the lyrics are representing the boys right now in this current situation and what they're going through. And I'm just like, what the heck? And it's just like, it can't be, it's just so fitting. And it's one of the things that I love about Idolish7 because their music has so much meaning behind it. And it's just, like, this is why I love Idolish7. I love the songs, I love the series, I love everything about it. But, yeah, anyways, after they're done singing, they actually do announce that they are leaving Yatome Production. And Ryo-san actually is meeting up with Yatome as this is happening, and he basically is fine with this because he was going to Yatome to see if he was going to sell them to him or not, what was his choice. But Ryo-san is actually fine with this, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna play nice now with you. And I love that Yatome ends up saying the same thing that Ryu said to him in his Okinawa dialect. I believe that's what it was, back in season 1. And I thought that was such a full circle moment and hilarious. But yeah, so now the whole world knows that Trigger is on their own now. Which, speaking of leaving Yatome Productions, Anasanagi also quits Yatome Pro to be with the Trigger Boys because the Trigger Boys were like, oh, yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do now. Like, what's the next step? And Anasanagi is like, I quit too. I'm gonna help you guys get through this. Like, I'm gonna guide you because y'all need someone to guide you guys. Which Anasanagi is just the real MVP, man. I love her so much. She is just fantastic. As this is all happening, Sumugi mentions how after this performance, the whole media just stopped mentioning Trigger altogether and how it became an unspoken law not to mention Trigger within the industry. So they basically like disappeared, which makes me a little sad to hear that, but also like, ugh, that just goes to show you like the power that Ryo-san has right now. I'm sure that he's the main reason why, you know, no one's talking about Trigger, and just everything that obviously that happened, the scandals, like no one wants to talk about them, and it's a whole big mess, you know. And like I said, I'm excited to see how Trigger is going to come out of this, and I know they're gonna come out of this stronger than ever. And then a few things that I do want to mention that happened in this episode is when Kujo sees the announcement. So he sees the announcement and he mentions how this is the right time to get 10 to go to the top and finally forget about Ryunosuke and Gaku, which obviously we know 10. We know he's not going to leave his boys behind like this. He is going to fight for his life. Like, that's just my feeling because he loves Trigger so much and he doesn't want this to be the end. So he is not ready to go solo. That's if he ever wants to really go solo. But I feel like that's just not who 10 is. I doubt that he'll ever want to go solo because he loves Trigger so much. But yeah, it looks like Kujo has plans for 10 and we'll see what those plans are. Which we know it has to do with trying to be someone bigger than Zero. But anyway, the next thing I do want to mention is this moment that we actually get with Ryo-san where he actually kind of starts discussing like his true feelings a little bit. And I feel like this is the first time we see him talk like this and be a little vulnerable, because most of the time he's either joking or messing with somebody and just being, you know, plain evil. So it was interesting to hear like his true thoughts and how he's feeling. And he mentions how idols betray expectations and how he was betrayed by 2 people and how he realizes that he's probably just throwing a tantrum. And I'm just like, that's interesting. And like I said, like I'm actually kind of excited to see like what that's about. and see why Ryo-san wants to do the things that he wants to do. Like, I feel like it'll give him more depth as a character why he's like this, obviously. So I'm excited to really dive into Ryo-san's past if we get to see it, or eventually, who knows. But we'll see. I do like that he acknowledges that he is just throwing a tantrum and just, you know, acting like a kid at the moment. And the last thing that I have to discuss is Yuki talking to someone on the phone. So it looks like the whole modern day Chiba salon is in effect, and Yuki is talking and gaining people to their side so they are able to fight Ryo-san from what it looks like. So I'm excited to see what that's about, and I hope they get the support that they need in order to fight back towards Ryo-san. So yeah, that's all I have to say for this episode. I hope you guys enjoy hearing my thoughts overall, and I will record shortly for this week's episode and have these up again for you guys as soon as possible. But without further ado, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day or night wherever you guys are, and I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy out there, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.